Hi everybody, I'm Diana from Sew Outside the Box. Welcome to today's sewing video tutorial. Let's sew an oven mitt. There's a pattern down in the description. Grab it and sew along with me. I have already printed and assembled this pattern. If you need help printing and assembling the pattern, please use the QR code on the instructions or in the link down below to get to the pattern printing and assembling video. So I've also cut my fabrics. I've cut main fabric piece, a lining fabric, Insulbright, and the cotton batting. This will be enough to make one oven mitt. So I will take the main fabric and I'll place it wrong side down on the batting, and the lining fabric I'll place on top of the Insulbright. It doesn't matter which side of the Insulbright is facing up. There is no wrong side of Insulbright. Okay, so I'm going to quilt each of these two layers, and for the main fabric, this is what I'm calling my outside of my mitt, the main fabric, I'm not going to worry about getting really straight lines. I'm not going to worry about using a ruler, and I'll just clip around the edges to hold it in place. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm just going to place it somewhere diagonally on my lining fabric, and then I'm going to make my first line. Then I'm going to move my ruler about 2 inches, and I'm going to put my 2-inch line on top of my chalk line, and then I'll draw another line from here. And I'll continue in this way to get nice, even, symmetrical lines all along the lining fabric. So I've already put all my diagonal lines onto my lining fabric, and I've clipped around the edges. And I don't think they're showing up that well on camera, but I can see them, and I can see them well enough to follow along sewing on my machine. So I'm just going to sew along the lines I've drawn on my lining fabric, and I'm just going to start here in the middle, and I'm just going to go ahead and follow the lines. Okay, so now I've finished sewing the lines on the lining fabric, and now I'm going to get my main fabric, and I'm just going to do some random lines all over the place. I'm just going to move my fabric every which way and not worry about making my wavy lines line up. I'm just going to be very random about it. All right, I've sewn all my wavy lines in one direction. Actually, you can't see this thread very well on camera, but here you can see it on the back. And then I'm going to turn it lengthwise, and I'm going to do a lot more wavy lines going in this direction. All right, I've finished sewing my wavy lines, and they're pretty random. They actually look a little bit symmetrical. You can see them much better on this quilted side than you can on the top, but there they are. I like the way my quilting looks on both pieces, and I'm going to set these aside while I work on the loop feature. So this is optional, and you can leave it off if you don't need to hang your mitt, or if you keep it in a drawer like I do. And I just cut a 4-inch section of extra wide double fold bias tape, and then I'm just going to fold it in half, and I'm going to sew 1/8 of an inch down either side just to hold it together and tidy it up. And here's my loop tie ready to go. This is my main fabric. Bring my pattern, and I'm going to put it right over here, and then I'm going to cut around it. I'm going to use my rotary cutter, but you can use pins. You can pin your paper pattern here and then use scissors to cut it out. The key is to cut one here and then to flip the pattern over and cut on the other side, and this will give you your mirror image pieces that you need for sewing. All right, I have my 2 pair ready to sew. I'm going to take my loop and I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to put it opposite the thumb on the main fabric mitt, about 1/2 inch down from the cuff, and then I'll clip it in place, and I'll take this to the machine and I'll sew it with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I'll do that for this mitt and also for this mitt. I'm going to sew around both mitts, the lining mitt and the main mitt, and I'm going to stop when I get to the thumb, between the thumb and the forefingers, so I can show you how I sew that area. So here I am between the thumb and the fingers, and I'm just going to sew straight down past the seam here, about 1 inch, and then I'm going to lift the presser foot, I'm going to turn the fabric 90 degrees, and I'm going to sew 6 stitches straight across, and then I'm going to come back up. I'm just eyeballing the 1 inch, I'm not going to be too scientific about it. Okay, so I've sewn around both of my mitts. I'm going to cut straight down here with the scissors almost to this seam, but not through it. And then I'm going to cut on the diagonal here, and that's going to create some space in between this bulky part of the thumb and the main mitt. And I'll do that on both pieces, and I'll trim the seam allowance down. And then go ahead and turn your main mitt right side out. I'm going to take my lining mitt and I'm going to put it inside my main mitt. I have both of my mitts together, and now I'm going to attach the bias binding. And you can see it's not too bulky between the thumb and the finger section because we made that little space there. It just makes it easier all around to have that space. Okay, I'm going to start attaching the bias binding. I'm going to work from the inside of the mitt, but the first thing I'm going to do is iron open one of these creases. It just makes it easier to attach the binding, and you don't iron out the crease. You still want to be able to follow that when you're sewing. And I'm going to leave a little tail, about a 1 inch tail. And I'm going to start clipping on the inside. And the reason I'm working from the inside is it's a little bit more difficult to get it under the presser foot, but it does make it a lot easier than turning everything. Okay, I've attached my bias binding. And then I'm going to get this under the foot. It's a little bit awkward to get it under the foot working from the inside, but it does seem to make this a little bit easier. Okay, so my bias binding is attached on the inside of my mitt. I've done a pretty good job of lining it up, but in a few places I'm just going to trim the seam allowance down a little bit, being careful not to cut my bias binding. And then once you've got it trimmed down, I'm going to go ahead and just start folding my bias binding over the top of the cuff. So there's a couple ways to finish here, but again, this is a super easy project. So I'm actually going to do a decorative stitch for this one. If you're going to use a decorative stitch around the bias binding, that you want to practice it. I can remove this little piece of my machine so that this rolls around a little bit better. Okay, that's it. You can see the little decorative stitch was easy to put on and it held this down. This is a really quick, easy project. I hope you have fun with it. Thanks for watching. Okay everybody, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel for more easy sewing video tutorials.